Hi, everyone, and welcome to Nocturnal Horrors. My name is Sean Mazeral, and I have a very, very special guest today, the one, the only Nightmare Maven. Please introduce yourself for anyone who might not know you.
Hi, I'm Nightmare Maven. Call me Maven or Vicky or anything. I also am a horror tuber like Sean. And yeah, we're gonna talk about The Exorcist. We read it for my creepy book club, which is on Goodreads. If you want to join, we read one book a month. Always horror, always creepy. And yeah, for once, finally, we're reading something very controversial and intense, and it was a really interesting read.
Yeah, I had actually never read it before, and,
Me
I
either.
think all of us always, we know The Exorcist so well, so
Mhm.
it was interesting to go back, and I think for me, my biggest fear of it was, like, I know the story in the movie so well. So is the book gonna bore me? Because like all the medical stuff, all the like talking back and forth about what
Yes.
is it? Maybe it's not a possession. It could be this. It could be that. I mean, the amount of things they actually thought it could have been going on inside her head. So I was really worried to go to the book, and I was worried I was going to be bored through a lot of that, which did end up happening for me. I'm assuming it's the same for you.
Yeah, a little bit. Do you normally? I'm curious. Do you normally read a book that you've seen a movie for already? Because I'm usually the opposite. I normally won't pick up the book if I've seen the movie.
Yeah, I can't. I very rarely do I, unless it's
Okay.
been like 20 or 30 years or something like that. Like where it's just like, no, I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, this is
Um,
one of like I think three times I've actually read the book
yeah,
after the fact, and I have the same fear that I'm like, am I going to be bored because I've seen the movie like I don't know how many times at this
yeah,
point, and I'm very familiar with the story.
yeah, definitely. But and it's weird too because off topic, like I hate being getting things spoiled for me with trailers and things like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like a book and a movie, like I have no problem reading a book like a week before the movie, which is weird because it's a complete spoiler for the movie, and yet I'm still like, yeah, I have to do it. It's like complete opposite of everything I believe in with spoilers, and I still do it.
I'm yeah, I'm the same exact way though. I will definitely do that too if I know a book
Yeah,
or a movie's coming out based on a book. I'm like, "Oh, let me read the book first, even though
exactly.
it's going to tell you everything."
All right, so let's get into it. The Exorcist. Let's start with the characters. On some of the on your creepy book club, there's a lot of comments and stuff. You guys do like a running commentary through parts and chapters and things like that. And one of the main things was uh, Chris, Chris MacNeil, the mother. Not big fans of Chris the book as opposed to Chris the movie.
Yeah, I found it. Yeah, I don't. I didn't like. I don't like overwhelmingly like her or dislike her in the movie. I feel like the movie is not so much about her, but reading the book, I feel like she's the main character of the book almost. And maybe it's just because we get a lot of her inner dialogue in the book instead, which you can't really do in a movie. But I I just feel like she didn't change much throughout the book. Like she started off obviously very concerned mother and I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, but she stayed like that through the
Mm-hmm.
whole book. So I was expecting a change. So every part we got to, it was like the same thing. I was like, "Oh my god, Chris, like I can't stand her." Like she's just a broken record and I get it, but at the same time it's like I wanted to see some sort of like arc with
Right.
her, and somehow getting her inner dialogue didn't help for me.
Yeah, I think for me, and I didn't have nearly as big a problem for
Mhm.
her as some of the others did, but at the same time, like she does have that quote unquote movie star mentality, right? Where she's
Yeah.
like, oh, like what? I can't take a year off. I can't buy a Ferrari. Like I was like, oh, like what? Like
That's
oh,
like her biggest problem at the moment. Like,
yeah, like putting in businesses with oil companies and things like that. It was, like, and it's not hard to see why they took that out of the movie.
yeah.
But for me, like when it came to Chris, in her sort of like her very non-even keel, like she was just all up and down, like the emotions were insane. But at the same time, like it made sense to me just because of her previous child who passed, and like that was something that wasn't in the movie. That really made an excuse for her to sort of be off the rails crazy at times.
Mhm.
Yeah, and her sort of like why she stays at the house and why she doesn't take her to the doctors, why she doesn't trust doctors. But even though she doesn't trust doctors, I mean there was like 8,000 tests they went through, right, for that poor kid. I was like, God, it's Pazuzu, damn it! Like what's there to not understand, you know? But like I get they had to go through all of it, but it was like, especially after seeing the movie and reading it in the book, you're like, oh, like get going, you
It's
know?
so tedious in the book. Like they make it clear that they exhaust every other option, but
Yeah,
in the book, you are with them as they exhaust
yeah,
every single option where you're just like, I guess that's the pitfall to having seen the movie. Like we know it's building up to an exorcism, so we're just kind of like you said, like, come on, like let's go,
yeah.
come
You
on.
want that like time cut. You want that montage to like get you going, like get me into Act
Exactly.
3 because I'm here for the exorcism. Okay.
This is called The Exorcist, excuse
Yeah.
me, like, and there's been no exorcism yet. Come on.
It's interesting too that you like there is Chris is sort of the main character in terms of like pushing everything forward in terms of going to see the doctors, going to see Karras, having the wonderful party, like all these things that she's pushing, and yet like her character arc for the most part is like, okay, now I believe in a higher up. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of it for me. Where I see
Yeah.
like her arc, it's like okay, and then I mean, same with Karras at the same time, right? But his is for me is like a deeper arc because he started fully believing, and then we meet him and he's complete non-believer, and then he goes back, you know. So his arc is a little bit more interesting, you know.
Agreed. And even Chris at the end, like she does. I feel like it's only. I feel like it's only like a half believer by the end of it, where she's kind of like. I feel like she's almost like she goes from like not believing to being like agnostic at the end, where she's kind of like, well, maybe. Like
Yeah, it's like
after everything she's been through, and was like, come on.
it just really went over your head there, buddy.
Oh, did you learn nothing, Chris? But yes, I totally agree. I feel like in the movie too, Karras's arc, like in both instances, is more interesting than Chris's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it stinks too because I feel like we could have definitely had more Karras, like you know, when he wasn't just sort of trying to figure out if it was a possession or not. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously the same with Father Merrin. Like, let's talk Father Merrin for a second. So he's the Exorcist, right? Like, he is the
Yep.
Exorcist. It is the title. He bookends the movie. 10 minutes at the beginning, basically 10 minutes at the end. I mean, it's so quick. It's like,
Yeah.
but I mean, like those opening sequences are super powerful and like really sort of gets you going. And in terms of the book, I kind of felt it was the same way. Like Blatty set it up. I was definitely intrigued by Merrin, and then he completely goes away, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure. I was trying to think. I'm like, well, why does he go away? You know, he's off writing a book, so it's like, well, I mean, are we gonna go to Vermont or wherever he was and like watch him writing a book and researching a book? Like, doesn't really do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I just didn't know. I like where would you think would be a good idea to put more Father Merrin in? Like if we did cutaways and things like that. That was my big thing. I was like, yes, we need more Merrin, but how do we put him in there to make to make the story still work? You know, strengthen the story.
Yeah. I don't know. I get it's weird because I feel like maybe it was just me that picked up on this. I feel like in the beginning, in his intro, how he, like you said, he bookends it, he starts it off, you get the feeling that he knows something is gonna happen, and when he comes back later, like I think in the book he says like when he gets told that he's being summoned to like do this exorcism, he's already been saying his goodbyes. He already knows that he's gonna have to go somewhere.
Right.
I guess I was kind of confused because it seemed like he knows in the beginning that something bad is going to happen, and yet he just goes off to go do wherever they said he went, like a Woodstock, writing a book or something. Like, so I'm confused. But then I guess at the same time, if he showed up too early, maybe that would rush the story too much because he does already know. Right. And when he does come in, he comes right in and he's like, no, we're going to start tonight. We're going to, like, let's do this.
Homie means business.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I don't know where you would put him in other than him arriving to help, but then that would rush the story
Right.
too much, I think.
Right.
So then you would have to put him at a lesser position, I think, if you wanted more of him, where he is kind of more in Karras's position where he's trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
and then he comes in to help,
Mhm.
which would change his character completely, though.
Right.
Kind of just like a half answer
Yeah.
to
We
people
just
saying
want
like, "Where's more
yeah.
Merrin?"
Yeah, we just want more Merrin, like just and like even like 40 years later when they do the next movie version, and it's like, oh, we still didn't really get more Merrin. Like that's what we wanted. And we got the spider thing and like the ending, which I don't like the ending of the new version of the movie either.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
I like the depressing ending of the original. It's like that Chinatown thing where it's just like,
Yeah.
it's Chinatown.
I mean, I guess I'm okay with like not getting more Merrin in the end, or if we did, if we get another remake or something and we still don't have more Merrin or anything like that, because I feel like he's such a special character
Yeah.
that he's so special because we don't get as much of him.
Right.
So I mean, like ultimately I'm okay with it. We all want more
Yeah.
Merrin, but I like his character how he is
Yeah.
in the book.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I also think that, it's, obviously the prequel comes later on, but I did really enjoy the sort of like when the priests are talking and saying like, oh, you battled him like years ago in Africa for like a month. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Like, holy, but then like in terms of characters and character arcs and things like that, that's why it's the Exorcist. That's why it's called the Exorcist. Like he is the Exorcist. He is the one who's been battling this before. So even though he's like got the least amount of like screen time, his is the most prevalent overall. You know what I mean? Because he's been dealing with this guy forever. So
I love how they say that too in the movie when he excuse my dog when he comes up, or like you said that he's been battling, like he did an exorcism for like a month or whatever, and they're like it nearly killed him, but then the guy's like he'll be fine though.
Yeah, exactly. Let's send him in again.
This one nearly killed him, but
yeah, and then we'll assist him with Father Karras, who we know isn't doing well. He doesn't really believe in God anymore.
Oh my
Go ahead,
God.
guys.
Perfect team.
Perfect. That's like that one part that in the book where it's like a side note, but like one of the priests comes to see Karras for help, and he's like, I'm having problems like being friends with other people. I want to be friends with some of the guys, but I'm afraid to like touch them or put my arm around them or anything like that. And Karras is like, oh yeah, no, I understand. And then his very next thing is like, why don't we go for a walk? I love to watch the sunsets at night. And you're like, this guy is like struggling befriending other men, and you're like, let's go for a walk, a sunset walk.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, okay, so the Karl subplot, right? Like, I thought Karl was like a great character in the book, which gets basically completely thrown out in the movie, which makes sense to an extent because, you're working with time and you have so much of that medical stuff that they have in there. So, but I did really like that plot. I did really like the, him being kind of cast as the villain, getting caught in the lies. He's got the seedy backstory, like, in the beginning, like, his wife is, like, scolding him, and you're like, why is she scolding him so much? And it's like, oh, because he's done some things.
Yeah. I mean, it works well. I can only imagine, like, reading the book, not having the knowledge of the movie, because he works really well as like the perfect red herring for, is this a possession story or is it something normal, not supernatural? And I guess just for time it had to be cut, I would imagine, in the movie, because you can't include everything. But I think he worked so well as a red herring, and I loved how intricate his story was in doing that. I just think it works better if you don't know the story, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, it was great. It was a great subplot, and so this is the other thing that bothered me about Chris is like this stupid director is like going at poor Karl. Like I don't care how seedy a history he has. Like poor Karl, he just keeps his mouth shut, and like you just want Chris to like backhand the director and say beat it. Like what's your deal? Like, oh, crazy Burke. It's like
He's just drunk, you guys. It's fine.
He's just drunk, but he would never do that or that. But he's just crazy Bert. Yeah, it was like, come on.
I like that's the one thing I feel like they kept a little nod to from the book, where it's well known that Burke, I think there is some sort of like xenophobia going on there with Burke and Karl.
Yeah.
But the reason why Dennings lays into him so much, or somebody says that, I can't remember who it is, but it's because Karl doesn't give him anything. Like, he's just kind of just like, okay, and then leaves. Like, he doesn't feed into it. So I like that they included a little bit of that, like in the party scene. Like, you can see Karl is, at least at first, is kind of just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Karl's all around great. I enjoy Karl. So
unsung hero of The Exorcist.
Yeah. And now, how do you feel about Kinderman in the book?
I thought he was annoying.
Okay, thank God. I couldn't stand him. I mean,
I think he kind of was. I think that was his thing, though. Like, I think that's how, like, he interrogated people. I think it was like an act he was putting on, like being kind of like bumbling and just a little bit like all over the place. But after a while, man, it
was so difficult to read the dialogue of him going, "I'm a bother. You mind if I bother you? I'm a bother. I'm gonna bother you. Is that okay? Do you have water? Can I, my belly hurts." I'm like, oh my God. And like, it's kind of like his shtick to get information and do all that. Yeah. But I was just like,
they somehow made it more endearing in the movie. Like, he's kind of doing the same thing, but I don't know, maybe it was like the delivery from the actor or something just made it more palatable in the movie.
He killed me in the book. I couldn't stand any scene with him. I was like, oh, please don't talk. Just investigate. Don't talk. Please. But
just investigate. Don't talk. I love that.
And then there's Mary Jo Perrin, she's like a national treasure that we don't get to hang out with. Like, it's like, put her next to Merrin. Like, I would love to see Father Merrin and those two talk. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the spinoff we need.
She was so fascinating. And she's the only one was like, oh no, trust me. I know your issue. And trust me, this is your issue. Have a book.
She plays such a pivotal role in the book. Like, because that book that she gives Chris becomes like the centerpiece for like, did Reagan read the book and that's how she knows all this stuff? Is it an act? And that all comes from Mary Jo. And then in the movie there's Zero. We think she's on screen for like a moment. I don't think they even say her name. But in that scene where they're talking with the priest, we know that that's her in the book.
Yeah, I thought she was great in the book, and I really I was bummed that she wasn't in the movie more, but at the same time, like, again, it's like, okay, it makes sense. But then I think that's like another like really big difference between the book and the movie is that the movie you know pretty much once you see what's going on with Reagan, you're like, oh yeah, that's a possession. We kind of know already it's a possession. It's in the book, I thought Blatty did a job of really sort of keeping you going back and forth between like giving you reasons why this might not be a possession, which I kind of enjoyed. And if you were reading this in like 71 when the book came out or whatever, like you're like, oh man, like, is this real? It's kind of like Take Shelter, right? Where you go back and forth and you don't know, if it's real or not. Like, I love those sort of psychological things. But in the movie, you're like, oh, no. That's a demon, buddy. That's a demon for sure.
It's funny how like how sure you are in the, well, I guess, they really, for time and, they cut every instance where that red herring comes in of like, is she faking it? Is it a mental illness? In the movie, they completely cut out all of that, which is interesting because Blatty wrote the screenplay for it. Well, like, he's adapting his own work.
Right. So let's talk about that. So, he won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is interesting because he, when he wrote the first draft, he created all these like additional like red herrings, and he had like all these flashback sequences, freeze frames apparently. Like, what? Can you imagine like him writing into William Friedkin? I want you to do a freeze frame here, Billy, okay? And it's like, so he created all these other storylines, and Friedkin was like, no, start over, do it all over. I just want the book. Like, I don't want any of this crap. I just want the book. And you can really see, like, even in the book, although you do have some of like Chris's inner dialogue, for the most part, it's very action oriented, like a script where it's like it's action dialogue, action dialogue. But he wrote scripts prior, so it makes sense. But I really think like the movie as a whole was basically just stripping back the layers of the book, and that was it for the most part. Because otherwise, like I didn't feel like they added much. I think really like freaking really enjoyed the book and wanted everything from the book. And he wanted like really all these like exact things. Like Blatty would make a couple changes and he'd be like, no, go back to the book. No, go back to the book. So I really feel like freaking Mike deserves some of that Oscar as well. But
yeah, probably.
But yeah, and I do think those were definitely like the right choices to like peel those back and off. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because the movie does work really well.
It does. Oh, absolutely, it does. And I mean, it went down in history as like one of the scariest movies ever. Like, it still terrifies people, and it's the movie that people point to, and they're like, the first movie that scared the pants off of me was The Exorcist. And I think it's even though they did cut back a lot of what makes the story in the book richer, like the red herrings and things like that, I think it's a wonderful like example of like a book to film adaptation. 100%.
Absolutely. And you would agree that you like the movie better than the book, I would assume?
Yes, I do like the movie better than the book for sure. That doesn't happen very often.
It's so rare, right? But it's like, yeah, it's funny because it's all there in the book. William Friedkin's able to like just make each one of those scenes like so much more powerful. It's almost
you don't realize how much of it becomes more powerful when you can see it. Like, you're reading all this stuff, and obviously like part of reading is seeing it in your head as you read, but a lot of it, like, and maybe that does come from his background in writing screenplays. Like, you don't realize like how much more powerful his writing is when you actually see it on the screen and you're just watching it. I think that's why the movie works so well.
And a lot of the dialogue is just word for word, you know what I mean? Like, they really just like, which is a testament to how good the book is at times, you know what I mean? So overall, like, you like the book, you love the book, you were like, whatever.
It's so hard to give like your unadulterated like thoughts on it, having the movie in mind, because the movie affected how I liked the book, I think, to an extent, but that's unavoidable. I think it was an okay book. Having been exposed to the movie so many times, I think it was okay. I think I would have liked it more if I'd read the book before I watched the movie. And I think there's at least one person in the club that hadn't seen the movie before she started reading it and waited till the end. So I'm so interested to see what she thinks, having watched the movie now. But it was okay. Where I think the movie is great, the book is just okay for me.
I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads because I'm upset that Goodreads doesn't have half stars. It drives me crazy.
Yes, I don't know why that's not a thing.
It's so difficult to rate. Like, a 3 and a 4 is so far, so far away. I would have given it a 3.5, I think. I did end up giving it the extra star to the 4 out of 5 solely because, everything that's in the movie is in the book, and like without the book, you can't create such a classic as The Exorcist is. And it's not scary or anything reading that now. And, there are really slow parts with like sort of the medical side and things like that. But overall, I think anything sort of that is the original to that to create such a movie, like, I had to give it the extra half star for Goodreads, So.
That's true. I can totally see that. It is an extremely, it's just it's different in some of the best ways from the movie, and yet just so similar, because it's like you said, a lot of it's just word for word. Like, it's interesting to see. I don't think I've read a book quite like that, like in relation to a movie, if that makes sense. I've not seen like an adaptation and a book relationship that's quite like this one.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I would definitely agree with that. Now, when you watched the film recently, right?
Oh, yeah. I watched it like the day I finished it. I was like, well, now I got to rewatch this.
Now, did you watch the 40 years later version or like the original one?
Oh, I watched the original one.
Okay. Yeah. Lucky you. I watched the other one. And then I tried to go back to watch the original, and I was like, I can't do it again. Like, I have to like step away. Oh, the other thing is like, you haven't listened to the audiobook version of it, have you?
No, I know Emma did, but I haven't. Yeah, I haven't. She just told me she liked it, and that's it so far. So I don't know her full review of it yet.
Yeah, so I mean, I read the book. I always read, if I can, I'll always read the book first. But past couple of days, I had been listening to the audiobook just to see the differences or whatever. Yeah. And Blatty does the reading, and he's really good. He's like,
interesting.
He's
okay.
super like in your face, like all the voices he does. You're like, oh my god, this guy is like living this. He's living for this. It's like amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I didn't know he read the audiobook.
Yeah, when he does like, there's like a part where the Crucifix Scene, which is like, to me was like so much like darker and creepier and disgusting in the book, right? Like it was like, it went like even, I didn't think you could go that much darker, but you could apparently. When he's doing that in the audiobook, you're like, I'm like, oh my god. Like, and he, like the part where he calls like Reagan like his little like piglet, and you're just like, oh no, Blatty, no, stop. I mean, it's so cringeworthy. It's like insane. So he's very good reading.
Yeah. Okay, I might have to check that out then. I didn't know he read it. That's really interesting to me.
Were there scenes, I mean, speaking of the Crucifix Scene, were there scenes that you thought were more powerful in the book versus the movie?
I think that was the big one for me that really, I mean, obviously the Crucifix Scene in the movie or in the book is going to make you squirm because of the nature of it. But in the movie, I think probably likely for ratings and things like that, even though it's such an infamous scene, it happens rather quickly compared to the book. Yeah. In the book, I mean, it's not that much longer, but it's the language that he uses that bothered me a little bit.
In the description, like how he's describing it?
Yeah, like in particular, actually, I'm
or the dialogue, like
because I was so like I was just so.
Oh, you bookmarked it, nice.
Off put, yeah. I was so off put. I was like, let me mark this. Just in particular, two words he uses. I mean, eroticism and sensually are used to kind of describe this scene. Yeah. Other words like Reagan crooned with a guttural, rasping, throaty eroticism, and I'm just like. This is an 11-year-old girl.
Gotta go shower now, thanks.
And I mean, it just serves the purpose of showing, like, how serious this is. Like, how serious, whether you believe at this point it's possession or it's mental illness. Mm-hmm. Like, because either way, that's extremely intense and graphic. But, it's just like, I can't describe quite. Uncomfortable seems like not the best word to describe it, because it seems more than that.
It was, that was bad. It was tough. It was definitely a read where I was like, okay, I know this is coming. Like, we already know what's happening. And you're like, man, and he still made me feel disgusting. Like,
that's the strange thing, too, because you know she's possessed, having watched the movie already. Yeah, so there's no question, but it's still extremely dark.
It's kind of like the, what was it? The, thinking of your, what was it? Summer of Night book. Yeah. That same sort of like the kids having their moment, and you're like, just not, no, it doesn't work. No, like, no, don't go there.
Oh, it's just so much worse when they're kids.
Yeah. And then there's this, Friedkin talks about it, like, basically in all of his interviews. It's really weird how often he, like, brings it up, like, podcasts or whatever, but, like, when he was, when he found Linda Blair, so they had done like 4 months worth. They couldn't find anyone, and then Linda's mother took her in without a meeting or anything, and said, "Hey, we want to try out for the part." She goes in, talks with Friedkin, and like, so this is totally cringeworthy. FYI, totally cringeworthy. Like super 70s like movie making. So goes in, he says, to Linda, have you read the book? Mind you, the mother is in the room, so that's a plus. Yeah. But Friedkin says, did you read the book? And she said, yeah, I really liked it. And she, he asked, like, what did you like about it? What's the book about? And she's like, well, there's this possession, and the demon, the little girl, does really bad things. Like, oh, what type of bad things? Well, she masturbates with a crucifix, and freaking goes like, do you know what that means? And she's like, yeah, jerking off, right? And he goes, yeah. Do you do that? And she goes, yeah. Doesn't everybody? Don't you? And I'm like, if you are a director, how are you going to tell this story? Like, why are you telling the story? Like, this is so bad and so not kosher. Like, you don't ask a young girl that. Like, do you ask anyone that? Like, no. Like, it was so bizarre. And then he, like, keeps looking to the mom, and the mom is like, it's like, what? It's like, okay, you're hired. It's like, okay.
You can definitely see the difference between like 70s filmmaking and now, because that would 100% not fly.
Right? You would hope. I mean, jeez. You're crazy. And that's The Exorcist. All right. I wouldn't necessarily say end on a high note, but I mean, that's The Exorcist. There you go.
You can't not talk about The Exorcist and not talk about that scene, unfortunately, for how disturbing it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and especially in that day, like, I can't think of other movies that were really coming close to doing that sort of thing. And it's such a big movie, you know what I mean? You usually have, like, these sort of movies coming out that are, you know, under the radar, independent, art house flicks that someone hears about somewhere. And, like, you know, back in the 70s, nobody's going to be able to see that, you know? Like, and then, but this one comes out, like, day after Christmas, huge audiences everywhere. Like, your average Joe walks in, like, and is just like, you know, like, what did I just see? Like, crazy.
It's pushing the envelope that much for such a, like you said, like a big film is still something we don't see that much today either. Like,
it's true. Yeah,
there's like the little studios that are becoming big studios, like A24, that kind of like are pushing the envelope, but they're not like Universal or Warner Brothers or anything like that.
Yeah. Very good point. So, all right, well, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No. It's so cathartic to be able to like talk about the differences between the book and the movie.
Right.
You usually only find people that have done one or the other. Like, I've read the book and I haven't seen the movie, or I've seen the movie but I haven't read the book, and so you just can't get into it. But so nice to be able to discuss it with somebody.
It's the beauty of your book club, my friend.
Yay.
So, all right, well, everyone, thank you guys so much for watching. I really want to thank Nightmare Maven. She has been wonderful, and hopefully we can do this again soon. She does have she reads a new book each month for her Creepy Book Club. I highly recommend it. You can find it on Goodreads. And I can't remember, is it The Changeling next?
Yes, The Changeling. Victor Laval. Probably not saying his name right, but yes, The Changeling.
Okay, so that one's coming in February 1st, so I'll definitely be reading that one. I'm looking forward to that one a lot. I've heard a lot of good things, so...
Same, yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.